If you ask people outside Australia to name the country's capital, they'll usually say Sydney, or to sound more cultured, Melbourne. But it's neither. The actual capital is Canberra, a master-planned city built entirely from scratch. When 6 separate British colonies united in 1901 to form the Commonwealth of Australia, the new nation immediately hit a wall. They needed a capital, and they had to decide where to put it. Sydney was the oldest and largest colonial settlement. Politicians there felt they were the obvious choice as the gateway to the country. Melbourne strongly disagreed. Thanks to a massive gold rush, the city was wealthy and established. They had the financial infrastructure, the culture, and the booming commercial centers to support a national government. Neither side would back down. The deadlock became so severe, it threatened to derail the entire federation. So the government wrote a radical compromise directly into the Constitution. The new capital had to be inside New South Wales, satisfying Sydney, but it had to be at least 100 miles away from Sydney, satisfying Melbourne. To satisfy those strict geographical rules, teams of surveyors spent years scouring southeastern Australia. They needed a location with a reliable water supply, decent transportation routes, and an agreeable climate. In 1908, they finally made their choice. They selected a region known as the Limestone Plains. It was a cold, windswept stretch of rolling hills, inhabited almost entirely by sheep. There were no major roads, there was no industry, there weren't even any grand buildings or a local population to support a massive influx of government officials. What it did have was access to fresh water, surrounding mountains that offered natural protection, and most importantly, it sat roughly halfway between the 2 rival cities. Picking a patch of empty wilderness successfully ended the political bickering, but it also meant the Australian government now had to figure out how to design an entire functioning city out of thin air. Rather than letting local bureaucrats sketch out a few roads, Australia launched an international design competition in 1911, asking the world's architects to submit their ideas for the new capital. Out of more than 100 entries, the winning blueprint came from a husband and wife team based in Chicago, Walter Burley Griffin and Mary Nonany Griffin. Their design was heavily influenced by the City Beautiful movement. Instead of paving over the landscape with a rigid grid, they wanted to build a garden city that blended seamlessly with the natural environment. This outlines the central artificial lake, splitting the city into distinct zones, commercial on one side, government on the other. Primary avenues aligned directly with local mountain peaks, ensuring the hills remained a focal point. On paper, it was a beautifully integrated utopian vision, but attempting to execute a project of that scale immediately collided with the realities of tight budgets and federal bureaucracy. Construction officially began in 1913. Almost instantly, progress ground to a halt. World War I broke out the following year, redirecting the nation's money, manpower, and attention away from the capital project. At the same time, bitter arguments broke out between the Griffins and government officials, who constantly tried to cut costs and alter the original designs. The infighting grew so toxic that Walter Burley Griffin walked away from the project in 1920. For the next several years, Canberra was little more than a freezing, dusty valley, scattered with half-finished roads and isolated buildings. Critics openly mocked it as a giant, mismanaged construction site. Despite the delays, the Provisional Parliament House finally opened in 1927. Federal politicians were forced to leave the comforts of Melbourne for a sparse, lonely building sitting in the middle of a sheep paddock. The relocation was absolutely miserable for the politicians. There were barely any shops, the winters were extremely harsh, and local laws temporarily banned alcohol. What was supposed to be a shining utopian capital had devolved into a national joke. Building a perfect city from scratch required sustained political will, and for decades, Australia simply couldn't find it. The turning point didn't arrive until after the Second World War. In the late 1950s and 60s, Prime Minister Robert Menzies decided to prioritize the project, throwing serious government weight into finally finishing the city. Under his leadership, the original blueprint quickly materialized. The massive central lake was finally dammed and filled. Highway systems were laid down, and thousands of public servants were forced to permanently relocate their departments inland. The architectural vision culminated in 1988 with the opening of the modern Parliament House. True to the Griffins' original philosophy, designers carved the structure into the hill, integrating the seat of government directly into the topography. Today, a strange paradox surrounds Canberra. If you ask an Australian about their capital, they will likely roll their eyes. It is constantly mocked as a sterile bubble entirely populated by out-of-touch politicians navigating an endless maze of roundabouts. But the data tells a completely different story. Because the entire grid was planned before it was built, the city avoids the traffic congestion of older coastal hubs. It has high average incomes, excellent schools, and a thriving cultural scene. The careful integration of the built environment with the local geography actually worked. Residents can spend their morning inside world-class institutions and 10 minutes later be mountain biking through wild bushland. Canberra will likely always serve as a convenient punchline for the rest of the country, but underneath the jokes, it stands as proof that a radical, purpose-built compromise can produce one of the most uniquely livable cities in the world.